Here's another story called The Terrible Queue. Ooh, what kind of monster is that? Sam liked shopping. She liked the hustle and the bustle of the crowds and the up and down escalators. She liked the supermarket, the trays of fruit and the towering aisles of cans and boxes. In the department store there was the smell of new shoes and the feel of shirts and skirts against her face. She wrote on the slips of paper in the bank. In the bookshop there were quiet places to sit and read. But Sam's favourite shop was Ike's Emporium. It was squashed to the ceiling with surprises. One Friday, Sam and her mum were walking past Ike's. "Can we go in?" asked Sam. Mum poked her head through the door and frowned. "Oh no, we don't want to go in there, Sam. There's a terrible queue." "What's a terrible queue?" asked Sam. "Something we don't need today." On the way home, Sam couldn't stop thinking about the terrible queue. "Mum, why was the terrible queue in Ike's Emporium?" "It's Friday," said Mum. "Shops are always full of terrible queues on Fridays." Sam imagined huge hairy monsters chasing customers around the shop. "So they're everywhere," she thought. "Why don't the shopkeepers just get rid of them?" she asked her mother. "They try their hardest," said Mum, "but sometimes they are very long." Dad came out and helped them carry in the shopping. "Dad, have you seen a terrible queue?" "Yep, there was one huge one today at the post office. It went out the door and onto the footpath." "Gee," thought Sam, "they do get long. Were you scared?" she asked. Dad smiled and hugged her. "No, just late," he said. Sam's sister Beth was reading a book. Sam sat next to her on the couch. "There was a terrible queue at Ike's today," she announced. Said Beth. "There was one there last week. There must have been at least 20 people in it." "Oh no," thought Sam. "Terrible queues eat people." She had no idea shopping could be so dangerous. That night Sam didn't sleep so well. She dreamed about shops full of huge, hairy, long, terrible queues. The next morning Mum said, "Coming shopping, Sam? We can go to Ike's." Sam pulled her blankets over her head. "I'm never going shopping again." Mum was surprised. "I thought you liked shopping." "It's the terrible queues," replied Sam. "I hate terrible queues." "Well, if we head off now, we'll probably miss them," said Mum. "Oh, good," thought Sam as she dressed herself. "Terrible queues aren't awake early in the morning." In the car, Dad was talking to Mum about something he'd heard on the radio. "Well, we'll avoid the motorway. There are terrible queues. People have been caught for hours." Sam glared at Mum. "I thought you said there wouldn't be any terrible queues yet." Mum didn't seem to hear. "Why don't they send someone to help?" asked Sam. "Police are there," said Dad, "but the queues are just not moving." "Crikey," thought Sam. "Even the police have trouble with terrible queues." When they reached the shops, Sam climbed out of the car. "Right," said Mum. "Let's all head for the department store." Sam held on tightly to Mum's hand. She was watching for signs of terrible queues. In the department store, everyone wanted to buy something different. Dad wanted a new can opener. Mum wanted to change a shirt she had brought, and Beth was looking for a book. "I'll take Sam with me," said Beth. "We'll meet you back here in a quarter of an hour." Sam stayed close to Beth. Every rack of clothes could be a hiding place for a terrible queue. Beth chose a fat paperback and paid the man at the counter. "Come on, Sam," she called. Let's go and find Mum. Beth and Sam went back through the aisles. They were almost at the meeting place when Beth stopped and groaned, "Oh no! Mum's caught in a terrible queue." Sam froze. It couldn't be true. The shop monsters had Mum. Sam had to save Mum. She ran past Beth and the sales tables. She dived under the racks of men's shirts and around the shelves of shoes. She dodged the hat stand, raced past the changing rooms, and slid through the legs of a shop mannequin. Sam found Mum standing with some people in a long line. Sam threw her arms around her mother's legs. "Beth said you were caught in a terrible queue." "Oh, well, it's not that bad," replied Mum. "I'm nearly at the front of the queue now." Sam looked about in surprise. "Where's the queue?" "This is the queue, Sam," said Mum. "We're standing in it." Sam looked at all the people standing patiently in the line. They were holding shirts and knickers and socks. This was a terrible queue? Sam laughed. "Terrible queues aren't so bad after all." "No," sighed Mum. "Wait till you see the traffic jam in the car park." "Traffic jam," thought Sam. "I wonder what flavour that'll be." The Terrible Queue by Tanya, Batt and Trevor Pye.